back to the Yes You Pod.
The podcast where we put you back in community. I'm Evie.
I'm Emily, and I am so excited because today we are joined by two of the most amazing women that I know. My mom and the lovely Cindy today with us. How are you guys? How are you feeling?
I'm good. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me. I'm honored to be here with you guys. So thank you for this opportunity.
I'm so excited to be part of you guys. I'm a follower, so
Loyal
okay.
subscriber.
Love subscriber.
so it's like I finally made it. I know Juju made it before me,
Yeah.
but I made it.
No,
I'm happy.
but yeah, we like had this plan for a while, and we know that like one of the most important things to us is community. And the first people that ever taught us about community are our moms, our spiritual moms, our familiar moms. So we just want to have a little conversation with you guys, just a little kiki, a little sit down conversation. But yeah, so one of the things we're gonna talk about is spiritual moms and the moms that we kind of are can be our moms or are probably not our moms blood related, but are people that have influenced our lives in one way or another. It could honestly be like aunts, sisters.
Right.
We all kind of have those experiences where like that person was in the position of a mom at that point in our life. So just wanted to kind of like ask, because you guys are moms by blood. How's it been being moms? First of all,
How was that for you?
yeah.
You want to go first?
Well, now for me has been an amazing experience, given that for the first 5 years of our marriage we couldn't have kids, and so for me, my kids, when we say our kids are an answered prayer, literally mine both. Um, are an answered prayer. So it has been a journey, and every time I see parents, I tell them all the time, like take videos. More than pictures, take videos, because then we get to sit down and watch them. And I remember that, and I wish sometimes there will be kids again, little again.
Because
But
they do grow fast.
yes, and for me, it's enjoying every step of the way. Like sometimes we want them to grow fast and I can't wait for them to do this, but it's like enjoying that moment where they're just taking the first step, because when they're young and they're into cars and college and things like that, it's like it's a total different season. Yeah, and you want to enjoy that moment. So I tell everybody it's like enjoy a moment at a time. And earlier I was thinking, if people would ask me, and I don't know this question was going to come, but it was like it has been a journey of, I don't know if every parent can relate to me, but it's kind of in a way scary.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess I started thinking about it. I'm like, but why? And I think it has to do with wanting to protect your child at all times, at all times. And it's something that it's like once you become a parent, it's something in your heart, and it's like even if you try to take it out, you won't be able to. And it doesn't matter how old they are, still want to, protect them. So in summarize it, it's a journey. It's a journey. It's a roller coaster of emotions, and because as much as there is happiness, there is worry. So
Going back to, you saying that if parents can relate to you about how scary it is. I remember I have two beautiful kids by birth, and then I have a stepson who I'm very proud of, that God has blessed me, with them. But with my oldest, with Jeremiah, I remember when I was sent home with him. While I was in the hospital, I was fine. I had a C-section with him. So you have the nurses there and you have, people around you. But when I was sent home with him, and then the next day, his dad had to go away on a trip. And I just started crying, like literally bawling my eyes out because I'm like, I'm responsible for this little thing. Like, if anything happens, I'm responsible. So I can't relate to being scared. Like, what if I fall asleep and I don't hear him crying for me? Like what if something happens and I'm home by myself and you have a C-section, so the mobility is not, there. But um them growing, like he's 21 now, and you know we have conversation. It's like he went from being this innocent, dependent on, everything that I, was, that I had to do for him, to now he's, independent and he's on his own. So when you have these conversations that change from you teaching them to say mama
Yeah.
to now they're teaching new things, because they're older and, they're experiencing different things. And, like with my daughter, like, she's 15, and sometimes her and I, we sit down and we have these conversations and I'm like, wow, like this is my baby girl. Like, like she's like blossoming into this, so it's like it goes from being scared because of like them hurting themselves or whatnot. But then when they get older, the fear is, I guess, it deepens because you no longer know where they're at. Like when they're infant, you put them on the crib and when I come back, he's
Yeah.
gonna be there,
Yeah.
she's there. But now it's like he's driving, he's at home when she goes to school, and so it's like it's different fears. So yeah, the fear thing will always be there. Like our mama bears will always be like.
No, and it's something that I've had conversations before with my mom, and it is something that is seen and is felt. Like, I know that as soon as I turned 13, I think I definitely saw my mom and my parents be more like hands on, like protective and more like fearful. But I know now, at the time I was like, I hate this, but like I know now because it was that, like it is different because I have always been that way and like I want to go out, I want to do everything. So I do know it is that fear, like putting myself in a parent position. Like I don't know if it would do it. I was telling my mom earlier, like the other day, I was like, I was telling Jaden, like my parents didn't allow me to have like Instagram until much later, and I hated it. But now I'm like, I wouldn't let my kids have a phone till like much older, because it is as you grow, you get a different perspective of what parenthood is like. And so, but yeah.
Wait till you become a mom.
I know. It's
That's the
gonna be.
toughest
It's so.
time.
It is the toughest
Tell 'em
time.
right now.
I was gonna wait till later in the episode, but I was like, we're just talking like this entire week of we've been talking about like with different people, like like pregnancy and adulthood and motherhood, and I'm like, God, what are you doing? What are you doing, God? Because I don't know about this.
That wasn't on our
I
But
minds
know.
that
And
wasn't
we
on
before.
already
our mind.
commented on the prior one.
Oh, you
Yeah, they said
did.
my mom is
Yeah.
probably rebuking right now. I'm like, speaking in tongues and rebuking right now.
Yes.
I'm
So yeah,
already. I'm
catch
at Chris
pause this
Puppet.
one, go to the last
Yeah,
episode
She didn't
because
see it.
we kind of give a little shout out. But yeah, and so I wanted to. We wrote down some questions, but um, how important was it for you to have a nurturing like mother figure growing up, and how did that change the way you raised your children?
me first. Um, for me, it was very important. First of all, my mom had me when she was 41. So for me, I was, I was raised by an adult, where Pentecostal adult. Because after my father died, my mom became a Christian, and I was only 3 when my father died. So all I knew was this adulthood in the house. It was Christian, Pentecostal, and everything adult. And so growing up, there were my friends and their mothers were probably younger and will allow them to do things that in my house it wasn't. So, but I thank God for my sisters. Um, and I got, well, gotta count my half sisters, so there will be six. But five of my sisters, and
And they all look alike. Oh.
yeah. Well, if you ask your dad, he will say he picked
Yeah.
the prettiest one. He better say that. And she was all my sisters. But there's one specific that I can say that for some reason God allowed me to. So as I said, I was blessed in every way. There was the one that taught me how to listen to La Hermanita Rivera, La Hermanita Melenda, and then there was the youngest, well, older than me, that I lived with her, and her daughter became my first daughter, kind of a deal, and I spent most of my time with her. But when it came to the spiritual part, my sister Nidia, she's a pastor in Worcester right now. I can tell you that even though all my sister had something to do in my life, the one that Milka, the one that you know showed how to drive by just letting me drive. and but I remember when it came to the spiritual part, having Nidia in my life, where she was older, but she had also kids that were, a little bit younger than me. So I felt more understood talking to her, and even in my adult life, I remember talking to her, and whenever I feel or my husband is looking at me and he's like, "You need to call your sister." So, because he knows that I will be understood, and we can relate as sisters, but we also can relate as ministers. And I remember writing to her, which I have to call her. But I remember writing to her. I don't remember if it was Christmas or some time ago when I say, "Thank you for being that person." It was her birthday. We did a video for her birthday.
Oh,
And I said, "Thank you for showing me what it is to be a woman in ministry." Because she lost her husband last year, or a year ago. And all the time that I saw her, and I'm trying not to cry, I don't know why, but all the time that I saw her as the person that, even when her husband wasn't in church, she continued, you know. And so for me, it was like the perfect role model, when it came to, yes, you can be a Christian, and yes, you can be a woman in ministry, and yes, you can do. And it's funny because I remember when I was younger, her telling me experiences, spiritual experiences that she had, and then for me to get to experience them, for me that those conversations were like, get ready because it's gonna happen, and you cannot get scared. You're gonna have a reference. So for me, having somebody that I can relate to, not to say my mom, because my God, if I love to pray, if everybody knows me and they know me and my prayer from my mom. This is the lady that you will wake up and she's kneeling down, and you will go to bed at night and she's kneeling down, and up until this day, she's like having her time with the Bible and on a daily basis. And so there's so much that you can get from your mom, but having an outlet, but it has to be a safe outlet. And then I thank God for my sisters. There's so many other women in my life that have come at some season or another. But if I got to tell you about my growing up, my sisters definitely.
It's community, it's and every time we talk about community, I always say that God himself is in a community because it's the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So he created us to be in community.
Relationship.
There's an African proverb or word that says that it takes a community to raise a child, because they're in their villages. Um, so we are all molded, with who we are today, the women that we are today, and the women that you guys are becoming is because of the people around you. Me personally, I have a different experience than Pastora. Um, with my mom, I experienced physical and verbal abuse, and I also received love and nurturing, if that makes sense. And we were talking about that yesterday when I met with the girls for coffee and to have conversations. And we were talking about that because it's a generational curse. And I didn't understand why was I being verbally and physically abused, but being loved at the same time by my mom. And it wasn't until I became an adult and her and I sat down and had the conversation that she is was a product of physical and verbal abuse by her mom, and her mom was the product of physical and verbal abuse by her mom. So it was a vicious cycle. Um, and I thank God that I broke that cycle.
Yeah.
That my kids cannot say my mom abused me. Now I yell because I'm a Puerto Rican
I
mom, so
mean,
I'm gonna yell at them,
in
and
Spanish.
it may like when I call my son Jeremia, he knows that he's in trouble.
Yeah.
He knows he's in trouble, right? Um, but they can't say, that I've
Yeah.
abused them. Yes, yelled at them, which is, it's. I'm not justifying it, right? It is a form of abuse, but compared to the way I was raised and what I experienced, it wasn't. And it's funny because the first time that I threatened my son to spank him, I was on the phone with my mom and she's like, don't let that nene, don't hit the nene. And I'm like, look who's talking. And she said, I
I
was
was
young.
young.
And I'm like, well, I'm young, because again, it's the ignorance of, like, that's all you know. And because that's all you know, that's what you're going to do. But one thing that my husband says is if you know better, you do better. And because I knew better, I promised myself that I would not be verbally and physically abusive, you know, with my kids. And I thank God that, I wasn't a believer, when I had my kids. I was raised in church, but I, was a prodigal daughter for many years. And when I had my kids at first, I wasn't a believer, but I still had, obviously, you still have, that foundation. And, although I wasn't going to church, I made sure that I put them in a Christian school, so that they can get, the word so I thought that I was doing my part. Um, but I do remember some of the ladies from church growing up, being loving and caring. um, so having that community again, it really helps to mold you who you are. And then I have my aunt on my father's side who was the one that always believed in me and always like I never had a I'm proud of you from my mom until I was an adult. Um, I never had help from her, to do schoolwork and stuff like that. She had three other kids that she had to raise after me. And then I have an older sister. So, she was busy. She was a busy mom. So I had to do everything on my own. And as a child, as a young teenager, I always used to say, I'll make sure that my kids will have my help if I ever have a child. Um, and again, I know that my kids can say my mom helped me with my projects, my school projects. She was there for all my performances. She, like I encouraged them and I tried to do what was not done for me that I wish I had. I tried to incorporate that with my kids. And I think now because I know the importance of it, I try to do that with, the kids at church. Like I was telling Evie on our way here, I'm like, I don't know why they see me the way they see me, but I feel that I owe it to them, because it was something that I didn't have as much of that I know it's needed and it's important.
It is so it's so important. We were talking about this a little bit earlier, and you brought it up perfect. You said like, if you know better, you do better. And I think a lot of the times as kids, we think, my mom has to be perfect. Like that's my example. And I we all look up to our moms. Like that's your mom. Like even if there's abuse, even if there's yelling or whatever, it's like I can't get away. Like you have something that pulls you because that's the person that gave birth to you. Like regardless if some people they don't have good relationships with their moms, and that's why we look. People look for their spiritual side, or they look at their friend's mom, like that one friend's house that has like all the friends, and that one mom that's still there talking with the friends. I've been that, and I've been on the opposite side where I have friends over, and then I'm over there, like you know, not like lost puppy, but like wow, like what is there? What
Yeah.
else can I learn from just a female figure, and taking mom title out of it from a spiritual sister, like we talked about before. But I think that it's so important, and there's something that draws um, youth and young adults to that type of personality of I'm doing better and I'm trying, and that's all we ask for. So thank you
And you know,
for
to
sharing
touch
that.
back on that, now, after my mother and I had that conversation, like our relationship is, it's like, my mom and I are real close. Like I call my mom every day, and she tries to be the best grandmother. She's trying to like make up, for the loss, And again, once you know and understand why someone acts the way they do, that's when grace comes. So I was able to, because I had a lot of resentment towards her, but it wasn't until I understood, like, wow, you were hurting because you didn't know any better, so that's why I was physically and verbally abused, but I also received love because she was trying to
Exactly.
do what she and give what she didn't get from her mom, you know. Um, so again, she wasn't a believer then, but she is now. Um, and my grandma wasn't either, but she became a believer in 1965. 10 years before I was born.
I was
That gives
gonna tell you
my
that.
my my age, but it's
Can you
okay.
cut that?
They don't know math. We're gonna crop that from the
No, you
video.
don't need their account. If you heard that, no, you didn't.
So, she, that's when the generational curse, was broken, with my grandma. Pastora was talking about, I call her Pastora, because she is my Pastora. Anyways, he said about the praying she learned from her mom. I learned it from my grandmother. Like 5 o'clock in the morning, you will hear my grandmother. First thing she did was from the bed down to her knees every day. And 10 o'clock at night, it was clockwise. 10 o'clock at night, she would get on her knees and she would pray. Um, so the praying part, I got that from my grandma. My mom now has it too, but I learned it from my grandmother. Didn't realize it until I came back to to Jesus and realized that fervent prayer. I did not realize who I learned it from until later on. Like it didn't, I didn't value it until after, like, wow, my grandmother prayed, so prayer is powerful.
And
Mm,
how? Oh, I know we mentioned like you guys are. Well, these are not my moms, but like in the spirit, they're my
yeah.
moms. But how? Right.
Yeah.
It's another story for another time. But how important is it for your kids to have a spiritual mom, someone else that they can look up to, talk to, ask for advice? That's not you. How do you feel about that? Like, do you look out for who their spiritual moms are? Like, what is your take on
Mhm.
spiritual moms for your own kids?
I think that's a very good question. Um, First of all, because the answer will be yes. Just like we are just saying how important it was for us to have that outlet, for us it's very important for our kids to have that outlet. Because I can tell my daughter the same thing 10 times,
The
turn blue,
first time,
green,
the
or
first
purple.
time.
She would not listen to me. But yet, maybe Cindy can say the exact same thing, and she will come home like she just received a God revelation the first time. At first, I was
Wow.
like, isn't that what I, but then I learned, it was like an answer. God, the Holy Spirit right there and then told me, but isn't that you were praying for? Isn't what you were praying for? And so I always pray for my kids to have a safe outlet, but at the same time, I always taught my kids, or tried at least, to teach them how to have discernment for when it comes to those things. Because sadly enough, there will be people that will,
Yeah.
take advantage of that position, and it will not be the right fit for young generation, even for adults. Even for adults, because I believe that we call them spiritual moms. Some people call them mentors, but I do believe that there's people for seasons, that you might have somebody that you can talk to, for years, but maybe that's not the right person to talk for this season. Somebody maybe that, has never been
She
married,
was not 40.
would not be,
Not 40,
a good
please.
fit for when you guys are 40 and looking for a boyfriend, right? 40? So, and so I believe and I pray for my kids to have that discernment of who's really portraying that person that can help them. And a good thing or a good indicator, I believe and I hope, is that if that person is not a prayer person, if that person it doesn't have a good relationship with their own kids, and I'm not talking about perfect relationship, if that person is not being there, present, showing, connected to God, would that be the person that can lead me to God? Because at the end, you can find, you know, consejos and everything everywhere. You Google it and it will be there. But it's a godly. Just because it's good doesn't mean it's godly. And so for me, my prayer always has been for them to find in the right season the right person, but that they can have that discernment and understanding from God. Is this a person that I should be talking to? Is this a person that would lead me closer to God? I have heard so many stories of people that the young person end up hating more mom or dad because they got together with the wrong, mentor. And so for me, it's a plus for them to have it, but it's also the right person. Is it the right person? And so I always pray for that. God, I want them to have the outlet. I want them to feel free that there are going to be things that they don't want to tell me. For whatever reason, they don't want to hurt my feelings. They don't know how I'm going to act. They really know how am I going to
Definitely,
react.
definitely,
So they
I
rather
agree.
tell somebody.
Um,
For me,
I
I rather than tell
with
somebody, but
with
that
my
person has
daughter,
to be a
I
safe
can
place.
say that
Has
um,
to be a safe place. So
she it's surrounded by her one of her spiritual moms,
That's your twin.
her twin, by the way, and many others, in the church that have, taken, her, under the wing, that pray for her, even if they don't, to me, it's like I might not be able to help you out, I might not have the best advice for you, but I'm gonna pray for you, and sometimes that's the best gift that you can give someone is I'm praying for you. Just know that I'm here praying for you. Um, and that
yeah,
sometimes like God puts one of someone in my heart. And, I just send them a message, hey, everything's okay, and I'll type up a prayer, like for blessings upon their life. And to me, when I get a prayer from someone, to me it's like you just bless me beyond measures. Um, so I know that my kids have a lot of people praying for them. And that's one of the
yeah,
things that I can
absolutely.
ask for. Um, and and it, with my daughter, it's not just like older, but she's been blessed to have you girls, around her, and some of the other girls, from the church, older, young adults, that have been a blessing in her life, from like the previous youth pastor, to standing up in the gap for her, and many others, and when she needed when she needed it the most, they were there. So it's very important that we have the right people around us, that and then this is for you girls, when you girls, and for whoever's listening, of viewing this this video, when if you're not a parent, in the future, like Pastora said, make sure that you surround your kids with the right people, that they can learn that from what they small, so that when they get to, older age, they can have the discernment of knowing, nah, she's good for me to talk to, like, on a, you know, superficial level per se, but not to go deep into, she's not the one, or he's not the one, but that one is. I'm gonna go to her. I'm gonna go to him. Right? Definitely.
And that's like tearing up as you guys are talking, but just because like it's so, this is very cathartic for me, just because like again, we started this whole thing. We're here because
To
of
teach you.
community, and like I said in the beginning, you guys are the first people to teach us about community. And so I remember like my mom has always been a prayer warrior. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with oil on my forehead because, and then I knew, oh yeah, she came in my room. Like that's always been me. And even though it has taken me up to this point, really, like this season that I'm in my life, it's taken me that long to realize how important prayer is. And I think I remember one time it was like a bit last year, I was going through a whole moment. I remember like texting you at like 7 a.m. on a Sunday, and I was just asking for prayer because I know that my mom has always taught me to go to people who pray, and you will know when people pray, and you will know when people have a relationship with God. And so like you have always been that person for me that I'm like, if I need prayer, I'm gonna go to somebody. Like I just know. So I thank you for being here. I know we said that, but like it is important because I love having conversations with people that I know will always be there in my life. And like you guys will always be a constant till I'm like old and gray. I know. You guys are still gonna be here. So no,
Definitely.
but I I wanted to ask, like, what was your biggest fear in becoming a mom? And do you think that you've conquered it yet? Or are you still kind of getting over it? Or you're not even thinking that you will?
I'll take this one first.
Uh,
My biggest fear was doing what was done to me, as I said before. That was my biggest fear. Failing my kids as a mother. Um, not doing a good job. Not, you know, I remember my son's godfather would always say to me, "You're such a good mom. Like, I'm so proud of you. You're such a good mom." And I always used to say, and to this day I say, I'm glad that you think that, but that doesn't mean anything to me if my son and my daughter doesn't think that I'm a good mom, because I'm not your mother. I'm their mother.
right.
So to me, that was my fear, that I wanted it to make sure that my kids felt I have the best mom in the world. Um, and it's hard, to raise kids, and sometimes you feel that they don't appreciate you, or they don't love you, or they don't, whatnot. Um, but when I get a text message from my stepson saying, "Thank you for always being there, um, and for loving me," that that helps with the fear that I did a good job. When I got a text message from my son thanking me for what I've done, for the sacrifices, for what I've taught him, um, I know that I've conquered my fear, that I did good. And when I got this past Mother's Day, um, Angelica wrote me a Mother's Day card, and she said, "I know this year has been hard for you, but I want you to know that I'm proud of you." Um, that meant the world to me, because, as you said, we as parents, us mothers, sometimes we hide how we feel, or we don't want our kids to know. And that's something that I try to not do. I want them to see me for who I am, raw as raw can be. If I'm good, I'm good. If I'm not, I'm not. Um, and this confirmed that I'm doing it right. Although sometimes I feel that I'm not. um, to hear her tell me that she's proud of me. Um, because this year has been hard, physically, I'm going through it, but to know that she feels proud of me. I've conquered my fear, and God gave me the wisdom to be able to do right by my kids.
I feel like I'm gonna cry. I'm so proud of you.
I was gonna say, who was gonna be the first one? No, it's talking to the heart, and I'm pretty sure so many people are gonna relate to your story, and this is why I think I'm so proud of you guys doing this, but
Yes.
also us daring to do this. They're young and they got to college. We had to pray before we start. But for me, I think my biggest fear is by saying this, it's, answering your other question is still there. It's protecting my kids. Protecting my kids. I always said it's because I had some um, when I was 27, 29. Um, but I think I was like that with my nieces and nephews still. But for me, it's the protecting them. It's the protecting them sometimes even from myself, protecting them from other people, protecting them from illness. Like my prayer wasn't God healed them; it was like give it to me. Like I didn't want my kids to go through anything. I didn't want them to the
You're not ready.
point
You're not ready.
that I still remember. It's like teaching them how to ride a bike. I think they learn on their own to take the wheels because it's like for me, you're gonna have wheels until you're 40. You're not gonna go. Just them getting a driver's license. But at this point, it was like I'm not gonna drive you guys around. You both got jobs, different places or whatever. No, I'd rather do that because at some point I feel I still have control over them. And so it wasn't until this week. So most of you or all of you know that we started a business in Puerto Rico and we left the kid behind. And that's still for me something that I don't know if I'm ready to talk about it. But at the same time, I remember, and not so many people know this, I think I told you, I remember God telling me before
He was a grown man.
everything happened
Let him be
and we
grown,
had to
He
make
man.
the
was a grown
decision.
man.
By the
Yeah.
way, he's 19. We were not leaving the kid behind. I was a minor.
Yeah.
Beer and everything. Full time job. So, living life in the house, paying the bills, and house for himself. Fine. But for me, it was that separation. I never left my kids in nobody's. They know there's no sleepover. They know there's no. I'm staying here. I'm like, no, unless mom can be there or daddy, you are not going. Um, even daycare. I think I stopped having kids because of daycare. Not because I was okay with pregnancy. It was daycare. It was where am I gonna leave? You know. And so you end up paying very expensive daycare just to have cameras. This is bad. And so at the end, I remember sitting at my desk, still here in Florida, sitting at my desk and God telling me it's time to let go. And I remember, and I'm being transparent, I remember telling God, I'm not ready for that conversation, sir. And moving on. I literally remember moving on. One of those that you're kneeling down and you're like, conversation's over. I didn't want to talk about it. I wasn't ready to let go. With time, I understood that if I was with my kids, both of them, I probably would have had nothing to pray about. There was nothing for me to pray about in that sense. Because again, mom is under control. They are where I can see them. But not having one of them, oh, I couldn't have done two. But not having one of them, it was for me like you always are on your knees. You always are like, God, I'm not there. I cannot see what's happening, but I know that you can. And the funny part is that
Period,
my husband
girl.
and I were on a business trip this past week, and then they both pick us up at the airport. My taking things that are in his head. When we um when we got in the car, Peter tells Jaden, "You can drive." Now I'm sitting already in the front seat, like question, like no, for me it's given. So I sat on the front row and he says, "You're gonna make him more nervous," and I'm like, "Probably." But as he's driving and he's doing a great job, and I'm watching everything because at some point I need to say, at the moment I need to say something, slow down, or this is it, or you should change, life already, even though you still got like 3 more months to go. But I remember at some point, feeling in the car, and they don't know this until now, but I'm in the car sitting in there, and I'm feeling, and I'm receiving this from God. It's like, so while you were out, you were praying for them. Now you're here. Is it okay for me to leave? Mom is here. She's sitting in the front seat. She's in control. God, I got. And for me, it was like, oh, I'm gonna cry to you. But I had to take a moment and pray once I came home, and I said, God, you know what? I think all this time into going back to the question because I went all around, um, that fear maybe it's not so much about wanting to protect my kids, but losing control. Losing control. And for me, it was a really hard moment and a hard conversation that I had to have with God. This time I couldn't say, I'm not ready. And I remember all these days after, I've been praying
Right.
to let that go. It's like one of those things that when the Holy Spirit reveals to you, you need to work on it, even if you don't want to. And it might take me weeks. I'm not ready yet. But it's me getting to understand that not because I'm away that it's in control, but when I'm here, then I'm in control. It doesn't work that way. That's still in control. Because even under your roof, your kids
Right.
can be in danger. Even if you're holding their hand, but if they're in God's hand, then they're going to be protected at all
Love
times.
Eileen.
So I have this mirror that we use for the ladies at some point, and I think it was Arlene. Shout out to Arlene. She wrote some 91.1. And so I put that in my office, right next to my prayer corner, well, my prayer room, because I kick everybody out of that room. Now it's just my room. And he says about the one that dwells, right, will abide under the shadow. And God has been talking to me to put it backwards. It's like, because you already dwell, because you already pray, because you already, you dwell in, you're being there, in the throne, and this is what you know how to do, then you're already covered. And so no matter where you are, you're abiding by that shadow, under shadow. And so it's like, remember that. You have prayed for these kids, like Emily said, they have been hiding like so many times. Wouldn't I take care of them? And so sometimes, or starting this since that moment, I've been praying, God help me to let them go to you, that you got them. Even if when I'm not here, I have faith. I mean, I got nothing else. I have to trust that God got them. But when I'm here, I still need to trust that it's still the same coverage and that God doesn't need me to intervene, that they are under that shadow. And so as a mom, you're always going to have that fear of, am I a good mom, or are they protected? Are they going to be okay? But I guess everything comes down to, who are you trusting? Whose shadow are you under? Whose shadow are your kids under? So if my kids are under the shadow of the Almighty, then I should be okay. You know, still in process, still working on it. But it's something that I appreciate the Holy Spirit that He showed me. Now, if somebody else would have told me that, I wasn't ready. But it took my son driving and me, sitting right there looking for something for the Holy Spirit to tell me. So it was okay until a few hours ago. I was in charge. I was taking care of them. It's
Yeah,
like when mom and dad
that's
comes home and the
We'll
babysitter leaves,
touching on
doesn't
back
work
on that
out
real
with the
quick.
Holy Spirit.
It's understanding
So that's my
that
process.
God loves our children more than we could ever love them. And it wasn't until I had my first conversation with Pastor Pedro. Shout outs to Pastor Pedro, man of wisdom. The first conversation that I had with him was I didn't like what he said. Honestly, I'm being
Yeah.
transparent. Like,
I love
I'm
that.
like, what pastor will say that? Like, and this is our first conversation. It was because I was being confronted and I didn't like that.
Mm.
So it wasn't until later on, a couple of days later, that the Holy Spirit revealed to me what he meant. And I had nothing to do but just sob and thank God for, his wisdom. And it was then when I understood that if I'm gonna pray and trust and ask God to take care of my kids, then I can't have any fear that He would protect them, right? Because they're covered. But it's also understanding He loves my kids more than I do. He created them. He died on the cross for them. So that's when I realized and I released them to the Lord, um, knowing that they're covered.
that's so good. And like as you're talking, I'm really sobbing right here. Like I just,
I know.
I'm done. But anyways, I remember like when we were in Puerto Rico, I was the one that went with them. The one, the kid.
La
Not the one that stayed
otra,
behind.
La
la
otra,
otra.
la otra que se fue. So, yeah. And so it was like, and I joke around, and to be transparent, like I joke around, like, oh, like he's
The
the
only
favorite
child
or
for those
whatever.
months.
And it was nice to be like over there and like the only child for just a little bit, but it was still like my mom was always like, "Oh, he doesn't call me," or like, "Do you know where he is?" And it was like, "Mom, just like leave him alone. Like he's grown. Like let him. Yeah, he's grown. Like he. And so it was like I did see my mom in another light, and jeez, come on, relax. And so I'm like,
We're already crying.
I know. I don't know why I'm trying to stop every time. But it was like that. I know you said something earlier where it was like when we're younger, we see our parents as like perfect and like they have like no faults. And there was a period where not that I stopped seeing my mom as like perfect, but I did see that she made mistakes and she was a person and she had flaws. And it was at that moment when she's, worrying about my brother, even though like me and my brother, we fight all the time. So it was like, for me, it was like, he's fine. Like he's gonna be okay. But like her still worrying about him, it was like for me, like she will always be a mom. And it's so like, I'm so glad that we're doing this because it's like these conversations that we need to have where it's like, I, I think I've always been afraid. And we were literally just talking about this, like, I've always said like I don't want to have kids or like I want to be the aunt and that's it. But I think it is because I don't think I'll ever be as selfless as my mom. And I think that's like
We
no,
came.
but like I don't think I'll ever and I want to try. Like I want to try. I will always try. If God gives me that gift of kids, like I will promise to be better than everybody, but like I want to be good and I want to be a great mom. But it's so scary to think of like how much my mom has sacrificed and how much she continues to sacrifice her sleep, her time, her money, her everything, her whole being, her whole prayer time, like her like saying no to God is because of us. Like that's so And it's like I have to live up to that, as like a mom. I want to do that for my kids. So it was like it's so nice to hear that, she's like, she still has a relationship with God, and I'm glad she's not perfect, because I would literally be like, I have such low self-esteem. But and she's talking about how like she doesn't want to let us go and stuff like that. But I last episode we were literally talking about how like my mom's like, oh, I already prayed about it, so it's not gonna happen. Like that's my mom. Like that's what happened last episode. But that's my mom, and she's like, I trust her prayers, and I trust when God tells her something. It's like I don't even have to worry. Like I remember one time her telling me like she was prophesied over, and how she was told like the Holy Spirit counts her as their friend. And that for me, after that, I was like, oh, my mom's like knows God.
She's chill.
Person. Like we,
we're
if my
homies,
God,
we're in.
like we're in.
We're good. We're good.
Yeah, so it was like ever since then, it always stuck with me, because it's like my mom's always like. That's why I laugh about it, because it's like if she prays about it, I'm like, I'm screwed. Like I don't think I don't think it's gonna happen. But it's because of that. I think my mom has had so much influence in her life that brought her to this point in her relationship with God, that I don't have to worry about a thing. And I think that's something that I will never let go of, and I'll never stop looking up to. And
Yeah.
so
It's funny
You
because she
blackmailed
says
them
it's like if my mom prays
with the Holy Spirit? Oh no.
it's like if I want you to know the truth, don't make me pray.
no, that's like it was happening right there. We were sitting right there, and I was like telling about like college or something, and she was like, "You're not going there." Yeah, I heard about it. It was right there. Like we're sitting right there. And I was like, oh, "Okay, I'm scared." But yeah, but it's like it's those things.
And I want to commend you guys for saying your fears, because that's big. Like saying that out loud, and our audience, small but mighty, like that's a big deal. And I think it's hard to confess stuff like that, even if it's community, even if it's your family. Like you're talking about your mom in front of your mom, like that's a lot. Like, and you're crying, and you're crying, and you're making me cry. Like, don't do that. But that's a big thing, and I just want to say I'm proud of this conversation. The last thing I wanted to say was just, what advice do you have for any mom out there, and any young person that has a struggling relationship with their mom? Like, what advice would you give them?
Well, like I said before, with it's grace. Have grace and compassion, and find out the history. What's causing the separation or the struggle, in order for you to really understand, because there's always a reason. There's we molded into who we are because of our surroundings. Right? They said we're a product of our environment. Um, so it's finding out, like what's the root of, like why is that person like that? What happened? Um, and then once have grace,
Yeah.
because again, we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And seeing, your parent as the perfect, or that they can't, that's unfair. It really is unfair, because we're humans, so that to me would be the best advice is, find out and have grace, and compassion with your parent.
I have to second that. Just understanding that our biggest fear is your well-being. You know, in any way. To sometimes, and I don't know if you have time to. This is confession moment. I think. I have prayed for God to protect my peace even from myself. Because those flaws and those moments that you lose it in, or even it doesn't have to be in a negative way of reprimanding them. It could be that you're protecting them so much that you're holding them back from experiencing things. And my kids tell me that all the time. You wanted to protect me so much. I didn't know about this. I didn't. Yeah, you didn't have to. Everybody was happy and you move on. You didn't have to know our financial situation, but Christmas here, And so protecting them from that. So, that grace is always needed. And of course, my answer is all going to be prayer. Take it to prayer. Take it to prayer. Ask God for moments like this, where our relationship now it's getting better. And I remember having a conversation. We have sometimes that we haven't happened in a while, but it's in the calendar to happen. What we call it a pulse check. Where we can sit around the four of us over dinner.
Wait, you changed the rules.
And we get to speak our mind. You cannot curse. That's the only thing. No. How is it? What is the thing? Is that you can say whatever, but you cannot curse. So, and you can be as brutally honest. Nobody can be offended because it's not personal. It's how I feel. So at that moment, it's like, how am I feeling in this group, in this family? Our decisions, how that affected them. Because even though we wanted to include them in our decision, it's a matter of also we need to obey. We need to obey God. We need to see further out, but also taking them into consideration. I guess in one of those pulse check, I think we spoke about that, I expressed myself and I said, I don't know if it's too late. I remember saying that. And I remember Emily telling me in another moment, I don't think it's too late. And since that moment, I started praying for God to reveal my relationship in a new season, in a season where they don't need me.
We did it a couple of days ago.
They don't, jump up in my bed anymore. Maybe I have to go into their bed. I did that in Puerto Rico a lot. Where now then, it's different. Where now I tell them that I have to go. And before I used to kick them out of my bed. Now it's like, let's not say that as well. But one advice that I can or want to share with the young people, when it comes to mentors, when it comes to spiritual mom, be two things. Be responsible with their time. As adults, it's not all the spiritual moms are, biological moms. I have known many great, and they don't have kids, and they're great people. They're great mentors. But be attentive of their time. Like the time that they're investing in you, it's important. Don't take that for granted. There is a set time. Enjoy that time and make sure that you make the best out of it. And second, do not see this relationship of a spiritual mom as something that they are doing for you. I'm not praying for you. I'm praying with you. I'm not reading the Bible for you. We're reading it together. If we decide to take, I don't know, there's so many Bible apps now that have to share without being in the same room. We decide to do something like that, just know that this is not about me going to the Father just because I'm friends with the Holy Spirit, and come back with an answer. This is more than telling you or showing you that prayer works. This is showing you how to keep a healthy relationship with the Holy Spirit, a healthy, spiritual life. So when I'm not here, you can continue, So when that mentor is not there, you can be healthy no matter if you're in school, no matter where you are. And your spiritual, mother or father is not there with you, and you still be strong in the spirit. So it's more than just a friend where you can go and tell them things that you don't want your mom to know. Because that's another thing. I hope that whoever my kids talk to, if they're doing something wrong, that they dare to say that's wrong. I don't want them to be the one that said, oh, it's okay. I'll keep the secret from your mom. Because that would not be me. I'm sorry. To all of those that want me to be their spiritual mom, Sorry. You know, I can. I can. It's not a benefit to you, not a benefit to your parents that are praying for you. Um, so very important, respect their time, but also know that they're there to work with you. It's not their responsibility to, get that load off of you and take it to God. It's like teaching you, not only by my example that prayer works, but I hope that when we finish with you, you become such a prayer warrior. You know, everybody asks me, what do you want to live at the end? It's like, I don't want to be known by anything other than, she prayed for nosotros y apareció. Like, it's like telling everybody and putting that in everybody's prayer work. If I can leave you with something, is that prayer works. I remember, again, this is why I believe it's for seasons. I remember one season in my life, my kids were little. We were in another church and they gave us spiritual kids in a piece of paper. And we stay in connection. Now she's a policewoman. And I love her, my Lumari. And even though our relationship is not as close as before, but she knows that I'm here. And I'm always watching, even if it's through Facebook, and I'm always praying for her. And I remember her having a special petition, and it's for her to share, so I'm not going to say what it was, but I remember her being worried about it. And I remember at that point, I didn't even know what to do, or say. And I said, you know what? I'm going to wake up early and I'm going to fast with you. But I said, with you. Now, she was young, like, she was really young, when this was happening. And she did. And she did. And God did it for her. God did it for her. And it was something big. And so, I don't know if she still remembers, but that moment was more for me as to that's all you got. That's all you got. As spiritual moms, there are going to be times that we're not going to be able to solve every problem. But something that you can count, on us. It's not that, oh, I'll pray for you. And then we go in front of God. God, mira esta. Oh, God, mira Ivy. No. It's an intercession. It's something different. It's something that when God puts somebody in your heart, you take it seriously and you fight their battles even if they haven't told you what it is. So look for somebody, that can take you, in like Emily said, sometimes you don't have to look further. It's probably your mom, it's probably right there here. But the same way, it's like pray for God to bring you around you with people, that are older than you, that have had this experience.
It's something
but that are godly. That will be
we will continue to, as we grow, and Angelica in the background, our stagehand here, but we will continue to take those lessons. And I still remember that day when you guys picked the names, and it's something that it does stick throughout our lives. These conversations will stick with us throughout our lives. It's something that in the moments that we need it most, we're gonna remember. And I think that's so special. In the moments that I've needed it the most, I remember so many women in my life and the things that they've told me and the things that they've put into my life. So it's something that it will stick with us. It will continue to flourish in our lives. But yes, we love you guys so much. I'm so grateful for today. It was this was so good. I'm just I'm so glad we finally did it.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy because we wrote this down as our first collab. This was the first. You guys are the first names, the first note that same day, April 21st or the 20th.
April 20th.
At 11:59.
It was it was midnight. Right
just creating the page.
Yeah.
And you guys are the first names, and it was us and Until Woman, which is a whole thing, and so part 2, literally.
Part 2 coming soon. Watch out for the Until Women launch. It is coming soon. I know you say it, so
but we'll put the tags and information so you can follow now for what's about to come.
But we just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. Please, please, please make sure to subscribe, follow, share. Comment. Yes. Let us know what you want to listen to. Make sure to follow us on our TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Apple Music, and so much more.
I was gonna say something else, but we covered everything.
Yeah, we're doing yeah.
I think we're everywhere.
Yes.
And on
Yeah.
Spotify.
Oh my God. Listen to Spotify. Right there. But we love you guys so much. Thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful day. We love y'all. Bye.